Awesome sauce. It sounds like some of the viewers are saying that they're having trouble, I think, hearing Mohammed. Mohammed, or I'm sorry, I think it was Mike, or no, Chris. Yes, Chris, if you can get a little closer to your microphone, that would be amazeballs. All right, so this, basically this show, is really the impetus behind it was to address some of the confusion, some of the FUD out there regarding Elastic. Is it a SIEM? Is it not a SIEM? But I know of Elastic SIEM, so doesn't that mean it's a SIEM? I would never give up my QRadar with the correlation engine for ELK. It's a hodgepodge of different open source tools. We need to hire all these expensive, really smart open source nerds to implement and manage this moving forward. It's too complicated and too clunky for the enterprise. It's not ready. I want to address all of that. And so I'm sure, I know all the guests on this show read my recent controversial article on Elastic titled The End of the SIEM Era, and also, and not only just the end of the SIEM era, but the rise of ELK. And so the reason why I wanted to have someone from Elastic here, to have James here, was to be able to speak authoritatively from the perspective of Elastic, who's right there, works with the product day in, day out, and can speak to some of these questions that came up in the article thread on LinkedIn Pulse, as well as on Medium. Someone's got a dog. Someone needs to be petted, Mike, or who, I don't know whose side that was. Also, so we also have Chris here, who is just implemented ELK and can speak from the perspective of a new user. So there's some comments that were made that, you really need to be an expert in this to be able to use it, deploy it, that it's really overly engineered and complicated. So we'll address that. We'll also address the, this new Elastic ecosystem, this new Elastic economy that's been created of companies that are taking the open source ELK implementation and selling it as a product and commercializing it. So we'll talk about that and what's the difference between them and Elastic. So with that being said, I'm going to just kind of put it out there. I'm not going to just tell people, who gets to answer the question, because that would just be stupid. Everybody just talk if you want to weigh in on the question, and we'll go from there. So let's start out with the easy one. Can someone just kind of jump in and explain what a SIEM is, a traditional SIEM?
Yeah, so SIEM, or Security Incident Event Management.
Security information, not incident. Oh, nailed. Just kidding. All right, let's make fun of him and try and turn him red. Security information event management.
Yeah.
He's blushing.
You just said IBM calls.
No, I'm just kidding. It's fine. No, so basically a SIEM is what? Event aggregation and correlation, right?
Yeah, so you should be able to collect events. You should be able to search through those events. You should be able to parse through things. Should be able to alert on certain conditions, and you should be able to draft certain reports, right? Those are like the big basic things I would see on any security incident event management platform.
Okay, he's changing the acronym.
Yeah, that's right, Webster Dictionary, change it. Yes, I mean, really, the traditional SIEM model is like some SIEMs would use like SQL databases and stuff, and then they started moving away from NoSQL because it's easier to parse through the information after you get it. Then Elasticsearch, people started building solutions using Elasticsearch because it was freaking fast. So traditional SIEM is typically kind of a so I don't want to say boxed in. Like, you have a lot of big name, big data SIEMs out there that are, polished and mature and whatnot. And they've got apps and connectors and all that. But really a SIEM, I guess in simple terms, is just a platform where you're collecting security events, and you're able to do correlation and search through things and alert on things and get reports and dashboards.
All right, so we've defined what elk, what the elastic stack is. We've defined what a SIEM is. Let's point the pink elephant out in the room. Is Elastic a SIEM? James, go.
Sure. So that's
This way, right? So initially, Mike was saying this. So people started using Elastic for security pretty much since its inception. So I've been using it for 7 years, well before we ever formally entered the security market. Reason being is speed and scale. That was the primary use why it was used. Petabyte scale data and above, and searching that in seconds. So let's put it this way, right? So initially, Mike was saying this. So people started using Elastic for security pretty much since its inception. So I've been using it for 7 years, well before we ever formally entered the security market. Reason being is speed and scale. That was the primary use why it was used. Petabyte scale data and above, and searching that in seconds. More recently, we've seen that most of today's what we're calling SIEM are actually built on top of Elasticsearch for that reason. And a few years ago, as a company, we decided to formally enter this market to make the life of our users easier. So anyone who had already invested in us for security analytics, and there's many big names out there that have been using us for security for a very long time, we wanted to make it easier. We wanted to have more out-of-the-box content, more what a traditional SIEM would do. So as Mike said, the rules, the reports, that sort of stuff. We wanted to make that easier. So as of today, there is a portion of Kibana labeled SIEM to try and start addressing those issues. Does it have every single feature a traditional SIEM has yet? No, not yet. But that is where we're headed. That is our goal. We really want to cover as much as we can of what a traditional SIEM usually does. With having the flexibility of the user being able to still build their own stuff. I think that's really important for us. We will never go towards a model where we're completely closed, or we'll never get rid of the open source aspect. So everything is always going to be open. So a user has the choice to either use what we give them out of the box or create their own, so roll their own. So we have started the journey towards being a fully fledged SIEM. As of today, we've already made massive strides in that direction. So just 2 weeks ago, we launched a brand new detection engine, which comes with 92 rules out of the box that are looking for various different adversary behaviors and things like that. And eventually we'll keep adding more and more. So that is the path we're headed. We also have now a full endpoint solution as well. So we joined forces with a company called Endgame a few months ago, which brings now, endpoint detection, response, protection, and prevention as well.
Yeah, you guys acquired Endgame. That snuck up on me. It was not. I wasn't aware of that until just recently. That's awesome.
Yeah, and
like one of the things that really struck us with Endgame in particular was, their technology was already built on Elasticsearch. They already used Elasticsearch under the hood, like most other security tools. Apart from that, it was a really good and mature endpoint solution. So it just made sense. And it just highlights the investment we're making in the space, right? This is not going to be like a side thing for us. It's not something we're just going to do quietly on the side. We're fully invested in the security space. This is one of the reasons why, we have 2 boots, RSA as an example. And what I like to point out is, like, this time last year, everything I just spoke about in terms of SIEM, detection engine, endpoint, we had none of that. And within a year, we've already added all this capability. So if we're a full SIEM now, no, absolutely not. We still have a ways to go, but that is absolutely where we're headed.
Okay. Well, thanks for the clarification on that, James. So okay, just for the edification of our audience, what's the difference between Elastic SIEM, and Chris and Mohammed, please definitely jump in here at any time. But James, what is the distinction between Elastic SIEM and, like Kibana? I mean, can't you? I mean, don't you have the Elastic SIEM if you're using the Elk stack?
You do, yeah. So SIEM is just another portion of Kibana. That's it. So it's just...
Oh, it's like a module or something?
Call it an app. So I like to call it a different view within Kibana. So basically, if you have data that exists inside of the Elastic Stack, inside of Elk, whatever you're calling it, and you upgrade it from version 6 to version 7.2 or any other version before 7.2, you automatically have the SIEM button. So it's not like it's something different. It's a different product. It's just a different view within Kibana.
Oh, okay. Okay. So it's not different plumbing. It's not even a different product. It's not even different code base. It's literally the same thing.
It's exactly the same thing. It's just a different view within Kibana.
Interesting. Now, Chris, do you or Mike or Mohammed? I mean, do any of you guys have any experience with Elastic SIEM? Have you guys? I know it's a relatively new product. Have you guys played with it?
Go ahead.
I was just going to say I touched it maybe a couple times just when I heard it came out, and it really just looks like another tool that's inside the Cabana menu bar on the left, and so it's leveraging the same data. It's just it's putting a CM template over it, so that you're looking at it in a different context.
Got it. Very cool. Mohammed?
So for me, yes, I tested. I tried to play with it, but I think the SIEM app, it's not. It's just have some of capabilities that's expected from the SIEM solution, right? But at the moment, I think Elastic they are focusing more on the threat hunting and detection, right? But if you,
I mean, you're 100% right. Up until the SIEM, we always called ourselves more of a threat hunting platform more than a SIEM itself. And if you saw the SIEM even up till 2 weeks ago, there was a lot of stuff missing that you'd expect from a SIEM. So we do keep adding more. What we try to do is, again, this is sort of the pick your flavor. So we wanted, for someone who didn't want to do their own manual queries or build their own dashboards, we wanted to have them have another way of quickly starting a security investigation, right? That was the initial concept. But now we're just adding more. So we're adding the detection engine. We'll add more to that just to make it more of what the end-to-end SIEM is. It was a bit. I'm going to be honest. When we first said we're going to be building a SIEM, I was a bit hesitant because I always built my own. I always rolled my own. I was that type of guy. So before Elastic, I used every other SIEM in the sun. I was a big Splunk user, big ArcSight user. I used all of them, and I was always a fan of building my own. So it was very sort of weird for me. I didn't know if we'd nail it. I didn't know if we're taking the right approach. But now, every time I see a new feature come out, I couldn't be more excited. And this is really resonating with people who have been using it. So, I mean that's the way we look at it. If you want to use what we give you with the new UI, use it. If you don't, if you still want to build your own dashboards and that sort of thing, please feel free.
Yeah, and thanks for commenting on that, James. And that's one of the things that I wanted to say.
Give me a second to complete my.
Oh yeah. Go ahead, Mohammed. Take over.
So if the client, for example, expect to have a compliance package like other SIEM solution, Elastic doesn't have that. So you need to build everything related to login management or correlation, also threat hunting and others. So that's exactly what we are doing on Octodot. We have, if you, for example, want to visit our marketplace, we have more than 100 rules on the watchers. So we're trying to build all the compliance package for our clients. Yeah.
I want to expound on what James said is, you can build your own dashboards, your own wrappers, your own stuff around Elk. As a matter of fact, Mike, you have some experience in this. Mike, I'd love for you to weigh in on this sort of economy that's being created of companies that are using the open source Elk stack to sell their own products. So, there's logs.io. So Mike, can you talk about Elk from the perspective of these other alternative solutions? Hell, Security Onion is built on Elk. So, Mike, you want to talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah. Okay. So the way that I see it is there are a couple different ways of doing it. There are companies that take the Elasticsearch engine itself and build around that. And then there are those who basically say, hey, here's the Elk stack with a UI wrapper around it, right? And so there's been a couple of like Log.io is a good example, right? Where they have basically you're signing up to get access to an already spun up Elk stack just for you. And the advantage of that is, the ease of manageability. And these guys have work to try and craft ways to accommodate every single kind of I say every single, like almost every single kind of data ingest model that I can think of. But at the same time, these guys kind of have this wrapper. They have their secret sauce around it, a couple of value adds.
Like a sexy GUI around the Elk stack, right? So
yeah,
it's the open source. It's the Elk plumbing, right? You got even Logstash and something.
It's also just like blatantly on the front end too.
Yeah.
Like you just log in and go, oh shit, this is Elk stack. Everything's Elk stack, right? And then which is cool. But then at the same time, when you log into the Kibana, you realize, functionality's been shaved down. I can't access the dev tools. I can't run my own request. Do any of this stuff, right? That was something that I figured out in one of the assessments I was doing for one of these tools that uses Elasticsearch openly. But then you have other guys like Security Onion is a good example. I'll get to that in a second. I was going to bring up Graylog.
Graylog, yeah.
I love what Graylog's done with. Again, I'm not getting paid to do whatever for them. I just really like Elasticsearch and I like Graylog. I like Security Onion. So I'm going to talk about them a lot. What they've done is they've got it's a completely free open Java-based platform that was built around Elasticsearch, and they've got their own versions of, I don't know if it's their own version of Logstash, but the way they're handling incoming logs is pretty cool because you can actually edit it from the front end, create pipelines and create regex rules to do your own captures according to your own CIM or common information model. So there comes a point where I can appreciate when someone has done when they've went to their own effort to creating their own platform around Elasticsearch, because they're using it as the database, right? The way for indexing that data. But then I'm not a fan of how someone just takes an Elk stack and says, all right, here's Angular JS, wrapper, have at it. You're basically just buying a hosted Elasticsearch from someone who's not Elastic.
Yeah, and is it pretty common? Is it pretty common for the third parties that are doing that? I guess I don't know, commercial. What would you call it? Commercializing Elk, or is it common for them to replace Logstash with their own like traffic director? Or?
James,
sure. Again, this is Elasticsearch is Apache 2 license, right? So this is normal. This is what people do. Like this is completely fine for us. It's essentially our distribution model, right? So we don't care what people use. Even for the commercial side of things, if you didn't want to use Logstash, that's fine. Like we have no problem with people using our syslog or nxlog as Excel or whatever you want. Like there's literally no restriction for the end user. Even if you do go for the fully fledged Elastic stack, it's all your preference. The only thing is, if you're going to use the only, I'd say, real hard and fast requirement is that if you want to use Kibana, the backend is Elasticsearch. If you wanted to use Elasticsearch without Kibana, that's your choice. If you wanted to use Elasticsearch without Logstash or Peeps, that's absolutely your choice. What these companies have done is they've grabbed Elasticsearch and they're just using it as their primary data store. Some of them, like Mike said, more blatantly, they modified Kibana and they represent that to the user, which again, they're allowed to do it based on the Apache 2 license. That's some of them actually promote the fact that they're running on Elasticsearch. So like if you look at, there's some boots that are saying like SIEM built on Elasticsearch because customers know, oh, it's going to be fast now because it runs on Elasticsearch. So like this is just the nature of open source software, right? It's going to be used.
Yeah, well, I mean, and we saw this with Snort, right? Like with open source Snort, there was this huge economy of companies that was created that took Snort, and there's companies that are using Suricata as their backend, for network threat analytics, and it happens.
IP tables is the same. Like there are firewall devices which embed Suricata and IP tables, and that's what they're running. They just make a hardware profile out of it. So like it's just the nature of Apache 2. The licensing model. So
can you, James, or someone, one of our guests, tell me or just kind of explain why? So, and we'll get to the really like controversial question here in a minute. I'm just kind of building up the suspense. So what makes Elastic so special, so different from your traditional, SQL-oriented databases? What makes it so fast? What makes it so special? What is drawing this sort of migration from traditional SIEM solutions. And I think there's a lot of confusion in the comment threads of my article where I don't think people understood I was talking about traditional legacy SIEMs that are not using Elastic as their backend. They're using, a MongoDB or NoSQL database or a SQL backend, whatever it may be. Can you guys speak to the difference, the idiosyncratic distinctions between Elastic as a backend for a data store and a traditional database-powered SIEM?
Yeah, I can just kind of chime in for a quick second. This is something I was talking about actually quite recently. So pretty much that's kind of how I interpret the question too that was raised in the article was not ELK SIEM versus SIEM, more like the technology in which SOCs are moving around to. So pretty much the way I've described it is pretty much SIEMs that utilize databases, things like the SQL or any other kind of data structure, right? If we're looking at SQL just as the example, we'd see that we have to traverse through different tables and we're parsing through different fields and getting the values and whatnot, right? But with similar thing for Mongo, which is JSON, basically just JSONified database, right? You're parsing through all the JSON to get the keys and values and whatnot. But with Elasticsearch, it's a search, right? It's not the same traversal process that you're getting to. It's very fast because it's all just plain text for the most part, right?
You got those shards, right? Like these, it shards it into three. Keep me honest here, but it shards it into three files.
It defaults to three. So
I can pick up on this as well. So
yeah, please do.
So the essential difference, like you said, the quintessential. So it's all about how it's working under the hood. So Alyssa, do you use Wikipedia?
I do.
When you perform a search on Wikipedia, you're searching Elasticsearch.
Yeah. I actually found out that Wikipedia was using Elastic.
So the same thing. If you get an Uber or a Lyft, that's using Elasticsearch. So the primary reason Elasticsearch to be used is the way it stores and searches data.
It's fast.
And if you think about,
yeah, like I mean, I used ArcSat, I used QRadar. It's like you would run a query and freaking have to come back the next day for the results.
Yeah, and the reason that was like 10, 15, 20 years ago, we weren't looking at petabytes of data. We weren't looking at terabytes of data.
Yeah.
Gigabytes was considered big data. So relational databases could still handle it. But nowadays, that's not the case. And
relational databases.
This is exactly how I made my choice to start even considering Elasticsearch 7 years ago. So I was using another tool. I loaded the exact same data set in it. I loaded it inside of Elasticsearch 7 years ago, not even today. And I got the results in a fraction of a second that I was wait for the other one. And that made me start thinking. Now, the reason that happens is, I won't go into too much detail about SIEM, but it's the whole concept of having what we say schema on write versus something like schema on read, which means when you're searching the data in Elasticsearch knows where all that bit of data sits. So when you're running a query, it doesn't have to build an index at query time. It knows where the data sits. So the way I like to describe it is, if you have a book, right, and you want to find out where what particular word in the book is, what do? You go to the back of the book, you look at the index, it tells you, hey, this word is on this page. That's the way Elasticsearch works. Whereas other tools don't. That's the fundamental difference here. That's the biggest difference of why.
That's why traditional SIEMs are using like structured, database SQL databases. It doesn't work the same way. It's searching for tables and tables of data.
Yeah, and so building a query and then running it versus having the searches run in line with what you're typing, pretty much.
Right. Yeah, and one of the questions that came up was, you really need to be an expert to get this installed, run, use. Chris, why don't you jump in here? What was it like for you in setting it up and installing it for the first time? I know you haven't had much time to really play with it much, as some of the other folks on the show. But can you comment to your experience with it and what it was like, and how quickly you got it set up and running? And
yeah, at first, my first attempt failed. I tried it on a Windows platform first, and that didn't work. Some of the instructions just didn't pan out. Then I switched to an Ubuntu instance, and using the package manager, It took a few attempts, probably an hour and a half. And then I was able to get everything spun up perfectly. Actually, the hardest part of that was getting the Java install to work properly. It wasn't even the Elastic, and I got Elastic and Kibana working. I still don't have Logstash set up, but I'm just working now to get different log sources put into it. I have a lot of experience working with these traditional SIEMs we're talking about, but there's just so many issues with them that I'm really hoping to find a better way.
Yeah, that's amazing feedback. So I know Mike has talked about, and keep me honest here, Mike, but I think you were saying to me the other day that Logstash is actually kind of like the most complicated part of the stack. The rule writing, trying to create specific rules for specific ingress data and where it goes. That Logstash is really just kind of like the most difficult part. And it sounds like that's exactly what Chris is saying.
Yeah. And so it's one of those things, right, where my best experiences working with Logstash has been when it's been kind of pre-made, right? So Security Onion did a killer job on this. They took the Logstash module, they had it set up so it accommodates, it can filter the data out, and basically like a traffic director, right? So the data gets aggregated inside, it's ingested, and this kind of proliferates throughout where it's supposed to go to certain indexes based on the characteristics of that data. They've done a real kick-ass job with that. Trying to do that yourself is a little bit more difficult, and it might have changed. But personally, I've went to other methods. Like I've went more like towards looking at things like Graylog's got their way of doing it, which I like, and then Fluent D, which is just taking everything as JSON and working in it through there. A little more complicated than that, but so I think it's one of those things where I think it's an acquired taste. I've never been super good at it, and it takes a lot of TLC. But then again, like much like a lot of the things that Elastic has been doing, it's basically certain things that were a little bit harder before have been made ridiculously easier as the years have gone on. So if there's the argument that it's a little bit simpler now, I'd believe it.
I like the terminology Mike used. Like it's acquired taste is one way of looking at it, and that's true, right? It's like, again, everything has a learning curve if we look at it that way. What we've tried to do at Elastic is we've tried to, again, as Mike said, make things simpler. So in reality, Logstash has become an optional component. We've tried to shift a lot of the functionality of Logstash into beats and something we call ingest pipelines. So these days, I'll give you an example. If you wanted to ingest, let's take a web server log. Let's take Nginx, right? If you wanted to ingest Nginx logs, you install a beat called filebeat, you enable the Nginx module, and that's literally all you need to do. You don't need to touch Logstash. It does everything for you in the backend, sends it straight to Elasticsearch, and that's it. And we've done a lot of this work over the past couple of months, especially from the security side. So we now have modules from anything like Nginx or Suricata or Zeek or Cisco, Palo Alto. So we've started adding more and more of these. There's still people who use Logstash. That's fine. We have customers and the users using it everywhere. But it is one of those components where it is optional. If you want to use something else, that's fine. And we are trying to make it easier and easier. So, for example, one thing we added was centralized management, monitoring your actual pipelines, that sort of stuff. So if you asked me this question, Alyssa, 3-4 years ago, I would say, yeah, it's going to be hard to use, and it's not the most straightforward tool. But we have tried and made massive strides to make it much, much easier to ingest data.
Yeah, and I'll build on that, James. I agree. And one thing, full transparency here. I do want to say that Elastic is currently not a client of mine at Night Inc. I'd like to make you guys a client, but the executive team did come out and meet with me at my hotel at RSA. I just got back from RSA. I was only there a few days, but I did meet with the marketing folks at Elastic. But one of the things that they did bring up was that, look, we are really this new company now. Like, it's really kind of like Elastic, version 2. It's this, trying to take the Apple approach to kind of out of the box functionality. And that, it really isn't, like you said, James, the same elk, the same Elastic from 3 to 4 years ago. The company's really trying to ship this new type of user experience with the product that is just period/install, you're up and running, and just trying to make the user experience less, just eliminate the friction on the administrative side. And I really have to respect and commend Elastic for that. And I would love for my viewers to give them a second chance. I know some of the comments, like Chris Kissler came on there and made some comments that, hey, look, this is something I looked at a few years ago and it really wasn't ready yet. I would urge you guys to take a look at this again, because it really has evolved. And I think just based on what Chris is saying alone, him getting it up and running so fast, I think the funniest quote in this entire show has been Chris saying it was harder to set up on Windows and hell of a lot easier to set up on Linux. I love it. And the fact that you extra brownie points for you saying Ubuntu. So one of the things that I want to address is the pink elephant in the room, and that's this quote that, hey, look, why did you title it this Exodus from SIEM to ELK? There's a lot of people that felt that it was kind of an overblown statement. I disagree. One of the things that I do is communicate with CISOs on a daily basis. That's especially formerly as an analyst, my job was to talk with CISOs. And one of our partners here was involved in setting up global SOCs for very large organizations who were paying, one of the clients actually paying $250,000 a month for a big data SIEM. Everyone can use their imagination on who I'm talking about. I won't name drop them. The cost of big data SIEMs to ingest more and more data, and James, you hit the nail on the head. Organizations are producing more and more data. It's petabytes, and if not more in some organizations. And it's just becoming too costly to maintain a traditional SIEM where you're paying for that so much for that ingest. To think that these enterprises are paying $250,000 a month for freaking technology that you're supposed to be sending your event data to. And with some CISOs that I've met having to turn departments away because they couldn't take in any more data. It would just be too cost prohibitive to take in any more data. How can we have gotten to that point? How can we have gotten to the point where we are turning data sources away in other parts of the organization because it's too expensive? Shame on us. Shame on the vendors. I'm going to get trolled in about a few seconds here on these comment threads. I don't care. You heard it here first. SIEM is dying. It's on its way out. I have spoken to too many CISOs. I have a meeting tomorrow with someone about this very thing. Migration from SIEM, traditional SIEM, to Elastic, to just creating a massive data lake. And having an interface like ELK or logs or whatever to analyze that data, and organizations decommissioning their SIEMs to move to MDR. We haven't even talked about managed detection response yet. I just believe that SIEM has caused too much event fatigue. Too many organizations have had black eyes from it. What's next? What's happening? You guys talk about this.
I'm going to say something about why we called it SIEM. Initially we didn't plan on calling it SIEM. It was a change, so we're going to call it something like SecOps or something like that. So here's the thing, right? So the market knows what the term SIEM is. Yeah. Sometimes I'd visit someone, like a prospect or an existing user, and they're like, we are not allowed to use you because you don't have the term SIEM anywhere in your product, because of compliance reasons or something like that. There are certain compliance standards where say you have to have SIEM. And if they don't prove that they have something which says SIEM, they cannot use it. And the market knows the word SIEM. Imagine we went to a company and said, we have a SecOps solution. And we have to explain, it's actually not a SIEM, just a different flavor, and we change things a little. It was just easier to approach the market like that. Like if we'd keep the name forever, potentially not, who knows? But that's sort of one of the primary drivers behind that. Like the market knows the term SIM, and also compliance actually requires that term SIM somewhere in the organization. So that's what.
Ditch it. I'm telling you, ditch it. Call it something. CEO, whoever is in charge of naming things at Elastic, if you're watching right now, change the name. Call it something else. Don't call it Elastic SIEM. Call it something else. You're actually doing yourself a disservice by calling it Elastic SIEM. If you're watching, change it. Mohammed, any of you guys, Chris, Mike, what do you guys have? Chris, you've had some experience in SIEM. You may be new to the elk world, but you've got some serious SIEM experience. Come on, guys, what do you guys have to say about this? Are companies decommissioning SIEMs? Are SIEMs dead?
I can tell you that the CISOs I've worked with, the CISOs I'm working for now, they're all asking that same question. They're going back to their SIEM vendor and saying, what am I getting out of this? I mean, all you're doing is ingesting my logs and you're charging me 6 digits either a month or for some year just to ingest my logs, and I'm not seeing any real value. You give me an alert every now and then, but what are you really doing for me? I can make Windows hold on to the logs on its own for all my endpoints, or I can set up an elk stack and do it for free. Or not for free. There's obviously a cost in everything we do, but I can do it that way and drop this multi-million-dollar expense without any real ROI.
Yeah, no, I agree. Mohammed, Mike?
Yeah, I can add. For me, for example, I don't have a good experience with a different SIEM, but what I know is it's so expensive solution, and also what they have in the market right now, it's a very I can say compute heavy, and also we can't find easily the engineer that have experience with this different kind of SIEM solution. So I think that's this a part of the problem.
Yeah, well, I'm talking to some organizations right now because, as you guys know, I'm also the group CEO of Briar and Thorn, which is an MSSP, and we're talking to some CISOs right now that are saying, you know what, F the SIEM, screw it. I'm not getting any value out of it. I'm just going to monitor my endpoint detection and response solutions, and I'm going to just, like Tanium or whatever, and I'm going to look at my network threat analytics solutions. It's just. They're moving to this new model and then throwing everything else into their Elastic, into their data lake. So I think there's definitely a new industrial revolution, this new, evolution happening. Mike, what do you have on this?
Yeah. So I've seen a couple things happen, right, where people will have the SIEM and they will drop it, migrate to Elastic, or they'll do both. Or just set up live, which I've seen people do a few things, right? My input on it is that when it comes to using the big name SIEMs that are out there, right? A lot of the deep pocket organizations would say, "Hey, this is expensive. We know it's good because it's got that price tag on it." That's it's like a validation thing, right? So when you say something's free, they go, "Oh, well, this is going to be rubbish." And that's a very top, like skimming the top level assessment, right? You just look at a couple things like, whatever, this is nothing. But so that's kind of like a really old school mentality of looking at it, in my opinion, because they're looking at it as it's not a mature product, because it's not been out there for so long. It's not super expensive. It is a mature product. It's been out there for, James was saying, over 7 years now. I don't know exactly how long, but I know it's over 7. And showing the having the pleasure of being able to actually set up POCs that shows that you can leverage, you can gather, leverage, and enrich things in very similar, if not the same ways, and more simply be able to do things like enact data retention policies utilizing Elasticsearch's or Elastic's curator. Whereas in other solutions make data roll a little bit like it's not as intuitive. It's a lot more steps. It's like Pepperidge Farm bread. You open it and it's still not open. And
So-
that, I don't know. Yeah, so I've seen organizations do different things. I'm just trying to point out a couple of the issues I've seen with people that would what they would say about Elastic and why they wouldn't go with it. But for me, like any successes that I've had in general, just been POCing it, saying like, hey, this is what I can get. Is this what you want? Where are you paying $70,000 a year for it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's it really is. It's about that return on investment, and I think this is going to fundamentally radically change the managed services market. I think as more and more organizations start to realize they're paying way too much money for their SIEM, dealing with event fatigue, dealing with false positives, dealing with breaches that were closed as false positives in the SIEM or didn't get seen, or whatever the case is, right? Because I mean, look at the Target breach. Come on, let's all be honest. There were two different security operations centers in that Target breach that saw the command and control traffic in their SIEM. What are we doing wrong? Okay, there's people out there that will argue those are the tools. It's all about, I get it. I agree. Security isn't a technology problem. It's a human problem. I get that.
On 2 points you made here. One of them is, I'm glad you brought up things like event fatigue and that sort of stuff. So I can guarantee that breaches get missed because of things like fatigue. Like if you're used to seeing 250,000 alerts a day, how can someone expect a human being to go to those alerts and find the bad and good stuff?
Right.
Additionally, and this is one of the things that really struck me with Elastic when I started using it as well, imagine you're given a tool where if you tried something, if you actively try to look for bad things, malicious things, threats, whatever, and it took you half an hour to get results, and then you find out that you wrote the wrong query, which means you had to start again, that's going to put you off. It's not going to make you want to actively go look for things. Whereas in Elastic, what I had found, before I ever joined the company, like if I made a mistake in my query, it failed in a second, I try again, I get results. You know what I mean? So it encouraged me to actually go and actively look for bad stuff in my data.
Right.
I didn't have a tool before that which technically allowed me to do it, let alone my mental state allowed me to go through all those alerts.
Well, and also faster, produce those results faster. I mean, like, look at
That's exactly it.
you need the event data now. I mean, when you're talking about mean time to detection, mean time to response, MTTR, I mean, time kills MTTR. I mean, it's obvious. Like the more, if I have to run a query, I'll pick on ArcSight. If I have to run a query in ArcSight and it's going to take 20 hours for me to get the results back, we got a real problem with MTTR.
Yeah.
And like again, even you also mentioned this before, which is how did we get to the point where I have to pay millions to ingest data and I'm going to leave data on the floor? This is another thing, right? Where, because, full disclosure, like we do sell stuff as Elastic, but the way we decided to price our solution is we're not going to penalize you for ingestion. Like we don't want to, we don't want to have to force you to leave stuff off the table because you can't afford it. And
We've gotten to that point.
And we've, we're always going to have a free tier. Like this, the SIEM UI itself is free, right? Like I'd say 95% of it is absolutely free, which means even a small business who doesn't have that $1 million budget for security can do something. You can use it at home for as long as you ever like. And this is game changing. Whoever had a solution where you can store infinite amounts of data for free for as long as you like.
Yeah.
Like this is one of the things which, again, really drove to Elastic's success in the market, or at least is leading to it as well. And again, taking off my vendor hat, for me, when I was still a user and then I was a customer of Elastic twice, it was a phenomenal feeling because I was able to find stuff and do stuff with the Elastic Stack that I was never able to do before with any other tool.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, it is very cool that you guys have the free version for people to use at home. It allows CISOs, it allows security engineers, security analysts to go home, take a look at this at home. To be able to run a full blown SIEM at your house and point your Netgear equipment at it or whatever, to be able to play with it and see whether or not this will work for you in the enterprise and your day job. That was something that I know a few of our guests have done. So to me,
Excuse me.
yeah, go ahead.
Want to highlight this point?
As you know, here in Africa, we don't have access to this kind of legacy, SIEM legacy. So, but it's not the case for Elastic. You can install it and play with it, and you have a great experience to test it. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then one other thing I want to talk about is as we start to wrap up the show, I do want to talk about SOAR, right? Security orchestration and response. This is, another, Mike's like, oh God. No, it's, the thing is that, with the change in SIEM solutions, I really believe that, cybersecurity, more than any other industry, is constantly evolving and changing. And, you look at the semantics of the world, the McAfee, the legacy antivirus that, have now given way to EDR. Things change. I believe that traditional SIEM solutions will either need to evolve or die. They are quickly losing clients, quickly losing market share. You have one particular big data SIEM that announced it had doubled revenues last year. Doubled revenues, and I'm sure a lot of those customers are looking at things like this and thinking, oh my God, all right, my budget is shrinking. I need to put more warm butts in seats. I need to stop paying $250,000 a month for technology when we can do it with something better. How is this going to affect the SOAR market? We have companies like Logarithm that are actually adding SOAR functionality to the same thing. There were a lot of questions raised around how will the SOAR and SIEM market eventually merge and or evolve. If traditional SIEM is giving way to things like an ELK stack, what's going to happen with SOAR platforms? Now, I will say that, for example, Demisto plugs into Elasticsearch. So does anyone want to comment on how this is affecting SOAR or will affect SOAR?
I'll mention something real quick and then I'll open up the rest because I spoke a lot.
Okay.
So SOAR, it's one of those things where people think it's going to be that magic solution to their problems. And in reality, they don't really understand that SOAR is actually scripts, right? In the back end, it's automated scripts. Like you can have a fully fledged SOAR solution with something like Rundeck, which is an open source tool to basically give you an API which can run scripts at scale. You know what I mean? And some things as well, like if you don't have an operational procedure to do what you plan to do with SOAR today, you can't just put in a SOAR platform which is going to do it. I mean, imagine, let's say you did have like a procedure for someone to go in, and when they find something bad, they call up the firewall team, block this IP address. Like if you're doing that like manually and you have it formally documented today, it's going to be a very difficult switch to have a solution automatically go and block some IP address or automatically go and block something or lock a user out or something like that. So people need to be really cautious. Like there are amazing SOAR tools out there. Like you mentioned Demisto, there's some other like Swimlane and some others which are really good. But I just want to make people who are watching this call, like it's not like, please don't think of it as like the magic box that's going to solve all your problems. Like it's a great tool. Like if you're ready for it, that's fantastic. But it's one of those things where like it can be considered just another buzzword. And in reality, if you have something that can interact with an API, like a REST API or webhook functionality, you can build a SOAR platform. Like it's that's what essentially what it is, right?
Yeah, if you want to decommission your QRadar or what have you, you can plug your SOAR into Elasticsearch, and
Yeah. I mean, again, I'm not going to say. I do one more thing. I'm not going to say like that. Elasticsearch is the best tool for it, or there's some other best tool for it. Like again, pick your poison, so to speak. If there's a tool you really like and it does the job well, go for it by all means. But for anyone who's in the market for SOAR, just make sure that you have to have the operational procedures in place already to do that. You're not just
the playbooks. Yeah. Oh yeah, I've seen. Oh yeah, good point, James. I've seen some organizations adopt SOAR platforms without pre-existing playbooks, and expect that to be able to fully operationalize their SOAR solution and not have any concept of a playbook in place for their SOC before adopting it. So yeah, there's no silver bullet for security. That's definitely for sure.
there's no magic box. This is why the industry has failed for the last 20 years, because we've been trusting these magic box solutions that claim to do it.
And I know I picked on Mike in the beginning of the show about the SIEM acronym, but I think it goes to show like, you know, how really, I think very little now these days SIEM is really you know, continuously being adopted. I really believe that SIEM will eventually give way to things like ELK and alternative solutions. So, any other comments before we wrap up?
Yeah. So, kind of hopping on the SOAR train here, this is something I think about a lot as someone who's responsible for handling innovations on our SOCs, right? And just the stuff I've done in the past other SOCs. And so it's pretty much, when thinking about SOAR, thinking about the solutions that are employed now and how much people are paying for them, there is not really a lot of, I say I could be wrong, but I don't see a lot of open source SOAR platforms out there. And you said Demisto integrates with, I know they have like a free open setup you can do too, but the good SOAR platforms that I liked using in the past have now got acquired and are now, you know, behind a big paywall, right? And so if you want to integrate these with the big name SIEMs that you have, if they're not already doing it internally, which is still going to increase costs in some capacity, it's going to be hard for the people that are at the peak of their budget or they're pushing the threshold of their budget, right? So, because whether they're doing it internally or they're relying on their SIEM vendors and providers to do it for them, it's going to be an issue. So I think that with SOAR, there needs to be more open options out there because it is essentially a script, right? So you're taking your playbooks and you're extending them you're putting them as an extension of your SOC process, right? So you're ingesting events. That event, if it's alert worthy, dings an alert, analyst sees it, the data ideally is already enriched, and based on what happens in that output of that enriched data that analyst sees, certain things are already going to be happening, right? That's just part of the playbook process. And so as someone who's written playbooks, I know the value of SOAR. I'm talking about an ideal world scenario, right? But I think it should be more open, like how Elastic is, to be built with Elastic as it grows. But yeah, it's just my 4 cents.
Yeah. So Mohammed, Chris, do either of you have any final weigh in on the SOAR solution? And then I've got one more question.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to dive deeply, but I want to just say SOAR is for me it's playbooks with the rest automated API calls. All right, and we can use Elastic Stack capability to do some SOAR. Not all, but some. For example, we can use Ansible and Roundduck to build automation and something like that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can always script your own stuff, which is awesome.
Yep.
Yeah. That's the beauty of APIs, right? Like all these open API, RESTful APIs. It's, you know, we can the power is in our hands for those SIEM solutions and vendors that actually open that up. I think that's another mistake that some vendors make is not having that, you know, interoperability and making that API public and available to be able to code for. So I think vendors are realizing that they can't do that anymore. That you all need to play nice with each other for sure. Chris, do you have any comments on the SOAR front?
Yeah, for the SOAR front, something that I think gets overlooked is what James said. You know, you don't have those playbooks set up. You don't have that maturity and that operating capacity already. And then if you look at the traditional SIEM, you run into the issue of not ingesting all of your logs because of the cost. So how are you performing SOAR when you don't even have the full picture of everything? And then it takes you 45 minutes to 2 hours to run a query. Yeah. So I don't understand how they can say that they perform those things. You got to have that maturity. You got to have those operations nailed down tight in your SOC, and then you can bring something like that in. But the limitations of SIEM creates limitations in the SOAR that they bring in as well.
Yeah, it's a half-assed SOAR. You just get the A and the R. You don't get the
yeah, exactly. All right, I am going to throw all of you a curveball. There is no one protected on this show. I'm going there, guys. I'm going to ask a question because it got brought up in the comment thread. James, are you ready? Are you ready for this one, James? It's coming. You know what I'm going to say. What about the Elasticsearch breaches? We had a breach in 2018. There was a breach in 2019. There was a breach announced in January of 2020. I know that, okay, I want to make this comment, James. There are some journalists, there are some reporters who I don't feel accurately wrote about these stories. I think there were some key things missing, a lot of the onus falling on misconfiguration because of the administrator. All right. So I'm not saying that, it was vulnerabilities in Elastic, whatever. James, I would love for you to comment on this. Mike, I know you've got some comments on this. I know you dug into those incidents. Let's talk about this because it got brought up. You can't, I think it's 2020. All right. Everybody calm down. It's not about, if you're going to get breached, it's when. So companies need to stop being so scared about talking about this. Like, oh my God, Alyssa brought it up. No, it's gonna, like, whether you bring it up or not, people are going to talk about it. It got brought up by someone in the Elastic thread. Let's talk about it. James, weigh in on this. Talk about this. Eliminate the FUD. What happened with these?
So, like you said, most of it actually boils down to people putting things on the internet without realizing the implications. If you put an instance of Elasticsearch and you don't protect it with authentication or encryption, people are going to scan the internet, find it, and take your data. Like, that's just the way things are. This happens with AWS S3 buckets. It happens with MongoDB. It happens with every other tool that has become popular, which people start to deploy without realizing the implications of putting something unprotected on the internet. We've actually taken strides. We've taken strides to make this easier. We've made basic security free. We said, let's try and help our users even more. So now you can put a username, password, and slap a certificate on it for free. Like, we don't charge you for it.
Yeah, and unfortunately, and I know, Mike, you want to weigh in here, but let's spar this out, right?
One more thing I'll say. This is like comparing, if you buy a car and you don't lock the car and then someone goes in and steals the contents inside the car, is that the problem of the car manufacturer?
No, but that's common sense. That's common sense that Main Street can understand. The problem is that Main Street, John Doe on Main Street, can't wrap their brain around that. So with cars they can, but when it comes to something like Elastic or Elk, and they say what they see in the title of the news announcement of the CNN report is Elasticsearch compromised. And it's like, no, but like you dig down deep in it, was like someone at Microsoft didn't properly secure the Elks, but I'm James, I'm in complete agreements with you. But I mean, it's like, unfortunately, it's Elastic that gets the black eye, and it's not the administrator. It's not Jim, the admin, who didn't properly secure it and harden it.
I'm very I'm sympathetic with people who fall trap to this. Like, it's not always their fault. Like, sometimes they're forced to put something on the internet. Like, they say, "Oh, make it available now. I don't care what you have to do about it." Some of them just genuinely don't know. So, like, this is one of the reasons why we made security free. Is like, okay, let's see how we can be a bit more helpful. Another thing we did, like, again, if you I'm not trying to sell our solution in any way, but if you decide to go and use our hosted Elasticsearch, for example, you don't have a choice to make that insecure or not, right?
Oh, you guys automatically harden it. It's the hardening is forced on you.
You can't run a cluster without encryption or authentication. Some of the other people who host Elasticsearch don't enforce that.
Yeah.
So this is a problem. Like, I was watching a talk about someone who spun up an Elasticsearch cluster on Amazon and said, "Oh, I'll protect it later. We can do it later." That's bad mentality. And this happens again. That happens with any technology which has become catastrophically popular. Like, again, AWS S3, same problem. Like, people leave exposed buckets all the time. MongoDB, they leave exposed instances all the time.
Agreed.
And I think the problem the industry has is we tend to point the finger, haha, you made a mistake, and said, hey, here's what you should have done next time. let's help you do it. This is the sort of approach we should be taking.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I agree. Mike, I know you've been wanting to chime in here.
Finally. No, I'm just kidding.
God, you're so mean.
I was gonna ask James, like, what do you mean? How is Elasticsearch not responsible for these breaches? But sarcastically.
Hash.
This is something I was talking about recently too. That there's a lack of journalistic integrity, I believe, because it will get clicks, right? It's going to get clicks. That's it. And I think at some level, I think there's maybe even like a collusion, but I'll save that for like the conspiracy theory chats.
The SIEM vendors are sending out covert people to write about this stuff, about Elastic.
they have their shills proliferate all LinkedIn.
But yeah, no, it is. So we have this like this thing that we fall trapped to, where like if we don't know, if we are not an SME on something, and someone writes something, we read it, that's our first time hearing about it. That's fact. That's it, right? That's fact. So when people that don't know any better, they see people either trash talking a solution or just putting out nonsense out there, or like there was an article that exactly. If anyone has a FUD-worthy item out there, either the people are reading, people are going to believe that shit's true. It's simply not. It's, James was saying fatigue is one reason for it. That can lead to misconfigurations. That can lead to even just like poor security hygiene in general. If your organization's utilizing Elasticsearch and they're putting their node out on the internet so that something can communicate with it, and they have a poor security culture in general, like their security operations and how they conduct themselves securely is just not there. It's going to happen. It's not the technology's fault. It's that,
It's like Microsoft getting.
Deploy security.
Yeah, it's like Microsoft getting blamed for somebody putting up an IIS server that's not properly hardened. It's
all their fault. Just drag them through the mud.
Yeah.
As you can.
Mohammed, Chris, do either of you have anything on this?
Yeah. For me, I think simply that they don't follow the best practice of how to secure in, for example, your Elastic cluster, or they start using on production or exposing to the internet without at least following the best practice. And another point, for example, you can use other services like AWS, Elasticsearch. They deploy it as fast as possible, but without security, which is not the case if you use, for example, Elastic Cloud. So that's it. Yeah.
Chris, what about you?
I agree with Mike on the journalistic integrity issue.
Someone agrees with you, Mike. You did it. Just kidding. We all love you, Mike. We all love you. We're all big Mike fanboys and girls.
Show me a single technology that hasn't been breached.
Yeah.
And if you're going to write an article like that about Elasticsearch, if Elasticsearch said, "Hey, we found a flaw in our code," that's something different.
Yeah, buffer overflow and Elasticsearch or something. Yeah,
that's obviously not correct, and we need to continue this education of the public and of our, people that are trying to do things securely, of what it means when they put out there tomorrow QRadar compromised. Does that mean the whole platform's bad, or is Elasticsearch bad because somebody put that in an article? No, obviously not. It's how you use it.
Yeah. Onus is on the operator. Well, we are wrapping up the show here now. I want to thank all my guests for being on the show today. We're going to do one final roundtable with about 30 seconds for each person to weigh in on any final comments that they want to add to this story and this whole thread. I do want to mention that this was part one of a multi-part series of articles on ELK, on the ELK stack, and this the end of the SIEM era. I will continue that campaign. I will be co-authoring a few of the articles with some of the guests on the show. And my final 2 cents on this is, if you haven't taken a look at Elk in a while, if it's been a few years, if you're trying to figure out how to lower your investment in your SIEM infrastructure and your security controls, look at, if you're using one of these traditional big data SIEMs that's charging you so much money per month for your data ingest, we should have never gotten to a point where we have to turn data away. We should have never gotten to that point. And I blame the vendors. Sorry, but I blame the vendors. Shame on them. They should have never got us to this point. And so thank God for companies like Elastic and other similar solutions that have come out to fix this problem. I'm a huge Elastic fangirl. I'm drunk on the Elastic Kool-Aid. Take a look at it. Take a look at it. It's a different company. It's a different stack. James, go.
Yeah, thanks, Alyssa, for having me. Last thing I'll say is anyone who has any additional questions outside of the series, we do have a Slack channel, which is for our community. So go to elasticstack.slack.com. Ask any questions you want. I'm in there. A bunch of my other colleagues are in there, as well as many members of the community. Try a community project. Shout out to anyone who's ever contributed to Elastic. Thank you so much for everything you've ever done. And yeah, just please, let's help you be successful in your security journey.
Mohammed.
Yeah, Alisa, thanks for the invitation. Happy to be on the show. You can find me on LinkedIn, Mohammed Al-Amin Saidani. And thanks for all the guests, and thanks for everyone.
Thanks. Chris.
Yes, thanks for having us. And James, thanks for giving that information on the Slack channel. I'll be bothering you in there really soon as I explore different ways to set this up, and hopefully I can put some stuff out there on ways to do this for those new people like me that are just now playing with Elk.
Yeah, Chris, I'm really glad that you were on the show. I mean, to have someone who's just now coming into Elk, just now coming to Elastic, being able to comment on what that experience is like, migrating from traditional SIEM world to Elastic world, I think that you provided a lot of value on the show. And, to get that commentary and that feedback on what this experience, what the friction has been like for you in deployment and your experience with it, please continue to update everyone on as you learn and as you continue to grow with Elastic. I will be co-authoring a paper with you as well. So I'm excited to have you part of that. And just sharing your experience as you go through it, so other people who are migrating to Elastic can learn from that. So thanks for being on the show as well. Mike.
Yeah, it was an absolute privilege getting to be on here and meet you guys. So I guess my final thoughts would be, as if this is a Jerry Springer show, my final thoughts.
Take care of yourself.
Yeah. I think broadening your perspective as much as you can. Question everything. Don't take everything at face value. And if you read something, do as much research as you can on it. So like I've seen people that were commenting on some of the stuff that you had posted that I could tell they meant well, but probably didn't know much about it, right? So just one of those things like, if someone says something that you disagree with, don't be mad. Maybe they know something you don't, and try and expand your own perspective. And similarly too, like I've worked with a lot of different SIEMs, open source and paywall and everything. And so I feel that that's given me kind of a funny, cool perspective to operate off of. So, and take care of yourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. That was. I'm glad you touched on that. It's there. I think we in the industry. One of the things that I really abhor about the cybersecurity industry is it can be very more elite than thou. Attitude with people, and we all know how high arrogance runs in this industry. We need to definitely address it. We need to call it out. There's no reason to go on people's thread, especially if you don't know much about what you're saying. There were some comments that were on the article thread that that you could tell the person who wrote it really just didn't fully understand Elk and really fully understand Elastic. And just be careful. Yeah, just be careful with that, because people read those comments, and the worst thing we can do is spread misinformation. I refuse to use the word fake news, but to spread misinformation about, especially technology, when you don't know what you're talking about. So it's shows like this, it's episodes like this where we can call that out and really just sort of eliminate the FUD and clear up the confusion that's being spread by misinformation. And appreciate all of you guys. So if we're meeting for the first time out there, this is a listen night. I am a cybersecurity influencer and content creator for cybersecurity vendors. I've really appreciated having all of you guys on our show. This is Night TV. Tune in every week where we interview new guests and talk about new topics in cybersecurity and pretty much anything I care about that week. So thanks everyone for being on this show today. If you were not aware, we are aware of the problem with the audio with our guest today. We will be publishing this as a video on YouTube, and I will also post it on LinkedIn and Twitter, where you will be able to hear the audio in all its brilliance and clarity in that post edit. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us, and we will see you next week. Thanks, everyone. Bye. Bye. Thank you.